It is with great pleasure and appreciation that I stand before you this morning to deliver this keynote address. This conference, under the theme South to South Dialogue on Economic Justice and Citizen Action, could not be more timely. It provides us with an opportunity to have frank and constructive exchanges on the pressing economic injustices that continue to plague the global South. Together, we must chart transformative pathways that foster inclusive growth, justice, and citizen-driven accountability. Developing economies in the global South continue to face multiple crises that hinder their progress towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. The global South remains mired in structural inequalities that impede sustainable development. Debt dependency, control of terms of trade by the global North, coupled with public resource mismanagement, challenges such as corruption, have entrenched cycles of poverty. To disrupt these cycles, governments must implement progressive fiscal policies that address corruption, tackle illicit financial flows, and reallocate budgets to address citizen priorities, particularly in health, education, and climate adaptation. Yet, amidst these trials, the global South also stands at a precipice of immense opportunity. As regions rich in human and natural resources, we have the tools to forge new paradigms of equitable growth, paradigms that build on solidarity, inclusivity, and citizen-driven accountability. As jurists, we must champion transparency and accountability in all government operations and undertakings. We have a duty to ensure that the citizenry is well informed about laws, policies, and regulations that are passed, because knowledge is power, and corruption thrives where there is ignorance and lack of transparency. We should therefore do our best to promote effective public participation in the enactment of laws and the implementation of public policy decisions. Economic reforms cannot exist in isolation. They require robust legal frameworks and institutions to guarantee fair labor practices, uphold property rights, and promote transparency. For example, social safety nets must be fortified to shield marginalized communities from shocks caused by economic downturns or climate catastrophes. The current global financial architecture exacerbates these inequalities. And according to the African Economic Outlook 2024, and I quote, Africa's sovereigns face higher costs of financing in international capital markets than advanced and emerging economies, given their perceptions of risk and resultant mispricing of their sovereign debt by international investors originating from unfavorable credit ratings. In 2021, African sovereign Eurobonds were issued with yields above 5%, and in 40% of cases, yields exceeded 8%. In contrast, the average sovereign bond yield for advanced economies was 1.1%, and for emerging markets and emerging market economies, 4.9%. It has been estimated that African countries are paying 500% more in interest costs when borrowing in international capital markets than when borrowing from the World Bank or other multilateral development banks, such as the African Development Bank, unquote. Fellow jurists, as a result, most governments allocate a significant portion of their revenue to public debt service, which leaves them with insufficient funds to adequately invest in essential services such as health, education, and social protection. Further, the public debt restructuring mechanism put pressure on public finances and are lengthy, creating liquidity problems for countries in debt distress, while a lack of meaningful participation in resource allocation decisions by developing countries exacerbates their marginalization in global economic governance. The world economic situation and prospect for 2024 says that developing countries face high levels of external debt and rising interest rates, making access to international capital markets difficult. There is a decline in official development assistance and foreign direct investment for low-income countries. Public debt sustainability has emerged as a critical challenge, especially for developing countries, in the wake of rising public debt levels and changing global financial conditions. The increase in global interest rates, a consequence of monetary policy tightening by central banks like the Federal Reserve and the European Central Bank, has escalated public debt servicing costs, particularly for countries with foreign currency denominated debts. As a result, many countries are grappling with the need for public debt restructuring, including renegotiating terms or seeking public debt relief to manage their escalating public debt burdens more effectively. These challenges demand immediate and collective action to reform global financial systems, ensuring equity and inclusivity for all. Despite the significant power exercised through public debt, citizens are increasingly resisting its impacts and realities. In Kenya, widespread protests, as you know, erupted in response to the Finance Bill 2024, which introduced a series of new taxes and fiscal measures. These measures aimed to broaden the tax base, but came amid mounting socio-economic challenges, including the rising cost of living, corruption, limited transparency, unemployment, and declining access to essential services such as healthcare and education. The nationwide protests reflected the frustration with the proposed taxation and a broader rejection of government failures, lack of accountability, and erosion of public trust. Citizens demanded a government that prioritizes their welfare over economic policies that disproportionately burden the poor and the middle class. These demonstrations underscore the vital role of public participation in decision-making and the power of citizens as active stakeholders in governance, advocating transparency, equity, inclusivity, and accountability. Such movements, ladies and gentlemen, are not unique to Kenya. Across the global south, similar protests have unfolded in countries like Bangladesh and Sri Lanka over economic issues, ranging from austerity measures to fuel price hikes and against economic mismanagement and soaring public debt. These protests signal a growing wave of citizen resistance against economic policies that intensify inequality and fail to address the structural roots of poverty. They also highlight the urgent need for governments to engage meaningfully with their citizens, ensuring that economic reforms are inclusive, transparent, and aligned with the priorities of the people. Despite the difficulties, the Global South is packed with potential for transformative growth. The digital revolution, green energy initiatives, and the intra-regional trade offer dynamic avenues for development. By embracing technology, we can revolutionize access to education, healthcare, and financial services, thus empowering citizens to actively shape their economies and their destinies. Digital tools and artificial intelligence are poised to redefine governance, accountability, and service delivery. From AI-driven legal research aiding judicial efficiency to digital platforms enhancing public participation, technology presents immense possibilities that lie ahead of us. However, these tools must be wielded responsibly with safeguards to prevent any abuse or misuse. Equally critical is the South-to-South cooperation. Initiatives like the African Continental Free Trade Area and the BRICS Alliance exemplify the transformative power of regional partnerships. Through shared learning and coordinated action, these alliances can unlock markets, foster resilience, and drive growth rooted in the Global South's priorities. It is crucial to note that economic justice is not solely the responsibility of governments. Citizens and civil society must lead in shaping equitable growth narratives. Advocacy, litigation, and organized resistance are vital tools for demanding transparency, equity, and inclusivity in public decision-making processes. We jurists must also confront rising threats to democracy, such as internet shutdowns. These actions, often justified under the guise of security, undermine freedom of expression and access to information. In an era where digital platforms are indispensable for civic participation, such measures stifle citizen agency and erode trust in governance. Protecting digital rights must become central to our fight for justice. Ladies and gentlemen, this gathering is not merely a platform for reflection, but a call to action. As jurists, we hold unique positions to drive change. How can we leverage our influence to create just, inclusive societies? That's a fundamental question. The answers lie in forging cross-border alliances, amplify marginalized voices, and championing the rule of law as a cornerstone to economic justice. Let this conference inspire a renewed commitment to equity and sustainability. The Global South possesses the tools, knowledge, and collective will to redefine growth trajectories, ones rooted in justice, equity, and shared prosperity. Together, as jurists, let us rise to this challenge and make it our enduring legacy. Thank you very much.